Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining. Today's webinar is Redefining App Deployment in Education. And today we're going to take a deep dive into a partnership that was announced at JNUC this last year between Jamf and eSpark Learning, where we're now truly able to get to the point where IT is spending zero time procuring and distributing apps for math and ELA. So like I said, my name is Sam Weiss, and I'm an Apple Education Evangelist here at Jamf, but I'm certainly not the stars of today's show. Today, I'm going to be joined by both Ashley and Derek from Pequea Valley School District. Now, Ashley's the Director of Technology, and Derek wears many hats, but he is their Jamf admin. So we're going to hear about how this partnership and collaboration has made both of their lives easier and has made students more successful within their district. Now, most specifically, what you're going to hear about today is we're going to talk through Pequea Valley's customized learning initiative. This is more than tech for tech's sake. This is tech with a purpose to drive student success. And part of that learning initiative is the eSpark and Jamf integration. So we're going to talk about what is eSpark, how does it work with Jamf, and then we're going to talk about the specific benefits schools that use both of these solutions get. Most primarily, streamlined app purchasing and deployment. So how can we have apps be purchased and distributed using API and not having to do any manual touch with Jamf or the devices? We're going to talk about how this has led to predictable app budgeting for Pequea Valley, and that's more than just your VPP and your app budget. We're talking about the storage space available on devices as well. And that's all great as long as it's helping students achieve. So we're going to wrap up today highlighting some of the statistics that came out of Pequea this last year that shows that their use of eSpark and Jamf has led to more capable, prepared students. So before we get too far into today's webinar, I just want to give a general Jamf overview. So who is Jamf? We're a company that helps organizations succeed with Apple. And we do that with our product called Jamf Pro. Now, Jamf Pro is true lifecycle management for Apple devices. And we're talking about how do you go from a pallet of delivered iPads to devices being in students' hands being used purposefully in the classroom. And this is about device configuration. This is about getting the right apps onto those devices. It's about putting the right Wi-Fi credentials, the right security controls, and providing self-service to allow students to solve their own problems. Now, the other key piece of technology we're going to talk about today is eSpark by eSpark Learning. And we'll dive more into what this application is later, but the high-level overview, it's a dynamic way for schools to procure and deploy the exact right apps for a student's specific needs at exactly the right time. Now, we could talk all day about both of these products, but we're going to focus on these four key areas. How does Jamf Pro make sure device configuration and app management is done correctly? And how does eSpark personalize the apps that show up on student devices? And then how do they assign and recycle apps to make sure that IT has to spend minimal, potentially zero time procuring and deploying these apps? And how does eSpark recycle them, bring them back into your library to be deployed to other student devices later on? Now, both of these applications are web-based and can be accessed from any modern web browser. You've got Jamf Pro on the left side. We've got eSpark on the right side.
Okay. I think it's important for all of you to learn about Pequea Valley so that you know who we are in conjunction with what we're talking about with eSpark. Pequea Valley is a small rural school district, and we're located in southeast Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, about an hour west of Philadelphia. We have approximately 1,600 learners, K through 12, 170 instructional staff, and there are 5 of us on the tech team. Myself, Derek, we have 2 techs and an instructional coach. We serve a really conservative community. 40% of our school-age children that live in the district actually don't attend Pequea Valley. They attend Amish or private religious schools in the area. 60% of our K through 12 population also receives free or reduced lunch, and that causes an extremely transient population of kids that leave and return sometimes more than once a year. So it's difficult for our learning facilitators to be able to meet the needs of those kids when they're coming and going so often. Pequea Valley was also received some accolades over the past few years. We were ranked 46th in Pennsylvania among U.S. News and World Report. We also were awarded Apple Distinguished School status in 2012, 13, and 14, and then again Apple Distinguished Program status for the years 2015 through 2017, and again 2017 through 19, and we're only one of 3 school districts in Pennsylvania to receive that. We also were awarded a $1 million grant with the Together Initiative and United Way, and that goes to support all of the families in our community. We were awarded Regional STEM School of the Year in 2015 and 2017, and we also housed the STEM Elementary and Secondary Teacher of the Year for 2017, which is awesome. We scored above state averages on 2017 state assessment tests, which is really difficult to do. But I don't share all of this information with you to brag. I think it's really important for you to know where we are when I talk about where we came from. So back in 2010, Pequea Valley was identified as the second lowest performing district in our region on state achievement tests in math and reading. And it was kind of at this point that we realized we had to do something different. We weren't meeting the needs of our learners, and we decided to take some risks and focus more on doing what was best for kids. And when you're second lowest in your performing area, it really can't get any worse. So we didn't have much to lose. That's where we entered into mass customized learning. And our MCL initiative really looks at learner engagement, meeting learners at their level, at their zone of proximal development, using constant assessments so that we can really shuffle kids and figure out who needs what and provide customized opportunities for them. So back in 2010, we had already begun moving in a one-to-one technology direction, and we had a pilot group of 110 learners in our high school that used Macs throughout the day, but we really needed to do more, and we wanted to make that a K through 12 program. So our customized learning initiative heavily relies on technology, but it is a program, a learning initiative that includes technology, not providing technology just for tech's sake so that we can say every kid has a device. So this really meant moving to a fully one-to-one environment. And we had a couple goals that we needed to meet in order for this to be successful. And the first was to individualize instruction. We also wanted to level the playing field. We talked about our economically disadvantaged population and our have and have-nots, and realized that providing tech to every learner, not a BYOD, was the best option for us. And we really wanted to prepare our learners for their post-secondary first choice, whether that was going right into the workforce, going on to college, a certificate program, or into the military. Customized learning is a viable option for transforming kind of the current industrial age assembly line delivery system to a system that really focuses on empowering learners and taking full advantage of the available technology to transform instruction. It really breaks down the traditional structures of school. It focuses on learner passions and interests in order to make learning relevant for our kids, and uses transformational technology to support instruction, but also to meet each learner at their level. And that's where our use of the iPad in conjunction with eSpark and Jamf allows us to enable systems that meet each learner's individual needs, making learning relevant for them.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. So as you heard, Pequea Valley looks at a mass customized learning initiative, and for some of their students, that centers around eSpark. So what is eSpark? So eSpark is an iPad application powered by Jamf that allows you to scale a mass customized learning experience across your entire student population. So what does eSpark do? Well, it really does 4 things, and it does them really well. eSpark analyzes an individual student's third-party or standardized test results to identify specific areas of deficiencies. eSpark then both buys and builds a playlist of apps that directly address those identified focus areas. So in one classroom, you might have a student that's still struggling to figure out upper and lowercase letters, while other students have gone beyond and are focusing on common prefixes and suffixes. So eSpark not only buys those applications for you, but they build those playlists of apps specific to each student. Then eSpark uses the Jamf API to dynamically push and recycle these apps in real time, meaning that students are getting just the apps that they need when they need them and not sooner, and that protects your app budget as well as your device storage space. And then lastly, eSpark offers creative challenges to establish higher order learning. And what that may look like is a student reteaching a concept back to the iPad using video that can then be seen by principals, teachers, as well as parents. So all that's great for students, but how does this simplify a Jamf admin's day-to-day activities? So for that, we're going to hear from Derek, who, like I mentioned before, is the Jamf guy at Pequea Valley. A whole lot more than that, but we're going to hear how eSpark makes his app distribution and procurement process a whole lot smoother.
Thank you, Sam. All right, we're first going to talk about the workflow when not using eSpark. You first will need to find the app, and this can be done through a recommendation, searching the App Store, or by browsing the current app catalog. Once you have the app, you will then need to test it. Check it for appropriate content, and make sure it meets the required standard needs you're looking for. The next phase would be for you to get it approved for instructional use. During this phase, the app is being checked for its content and looking to see if the accounts or logins need to be created. If the accounts or logins are needed, we are looking to make sure that the terms of conditions are met within that app. During the IT approval phase, we are looking for in-app purchases if it is VPP compatible and making sure it is 64-bit app to meet the iOS requirements for iOS 11. Once it is approved by IT, the app then needs to be approved to purchase. This phase could take anywhere from a day or a few weeks, depending on who needs the approval of the purchase. We have seen this approval needs to go to admin and sometimes even the school board. Here at Pequea Valley, the IT department does the approval and the purchasing. After the app is approved, it can then be purchased via VPP. The app is then added to your MDM. A static group is created. The app is scoped to the app. The app is scoped, and then the app is installed on the iPad. Cleaning up and recycling is performed once the app is no longer needed. Now let's talk the workflow with eSpark. With eSpark, it is broken down into 3 sections. They are completely automated. Those 3 sections are discovering, approval and purchasing, and deployment. In the discovering section, eSpark looks and finds the best standard aligned apps, saving our facilitators time and allowing them to focus on instruction. In the approval and purchasing section, apps are carefully looked at and examined to meet the standard needs before purchasing of the app. A great example of this is when our teachers would request apps through the Apps Gone Free app because they would see the app and it was free for that day. They were not taking the time to look at the content of the app. They were just focusing on getting it because it was free. In the deployment section, eSpark uses the API integration to add the app, scope it, and then dynamically recycle it for its next student's use. Here's a breakdown of how long each process without eSpark would take to complete. Finding and testing of apps could take anywhere from 10 to 45 minutes. Putting a ticket in would take roughly 2 minutes. Someone from the instructional team looking over the app you're requesting takes about 5 to 10 minutes. The approval and purchasing from the IT department, about 5 minutes. But keep in mind, it could take longer if it needs to go to admin or school board approval. Deployment of the app after it's been purchased, about 5 minutes. And then dynamically recycling the app takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. This is something that is probably not happening though, because facilitators are not notifying you when the app is no longer needed for one student and then can be used for the next. And then the dynamic smart group cleanup, which would take about 3 minutes.
So as you can see, when using eSpark, not only is it great for the students, but it really saves time, not just for IT, but throughout your entire school district. Anyone that's involved with a software purchase or deployment of iOS applications is going to save time using this process. So how does eSpark actually work with Jamf? It's actually one of the easier integrations that Jamf has, and it can be broken down into a few very simple steps. Firstly, you need a limited access user with custom permissions for this API integration. And this is done in a very secure way that makes sure that an eSpark user can't cause damage or have unintended consequences on your deployment. Then, it's a very simple next step is you need to make a smart or static group for your eSpark devices. When you integrate with eSpark, the static group ID is hard-coded into their implementation, again, for security reasons, making sure eSpark can only modify group assignments for devices within the static group. Now, for those of you that have deployed apps in Jamf before, you may have noticed that little app configuration tab up at the top. What that allows us to do is pass information along to an app to help make it self-aware of the environment that it's living in. And this is all available in eSpark and Jamf documentation, but you just paste that string. And that's it. After that, you would provide eSpark your VPP credentials so that they can automate that purchasing process for you. But after that, everything flows. Your apps will be purchased, they will be scoped out when needed, and retracted when the eSpark app identifies a student's no longer using that. So, using eSpark can also lead to predictable app budgeting, and that means more than just the dollars that you spend on VPP for apps. What we're really talking about is both your app budget as well as device storage.
Over the course of our iPad and eSpark implementation, app budgeting used to kind of be a guessing game. Some of our teachers and facilitators are constantly purchasing and changing up the apps that their learners have access to, while others are requesting the same apps for every learner every year and don't make changes very often. So when you look at the price range of apps that are in the App Store, we can range anywhere from free, $1.99, upwards of $5 or $6 per license. And this really doesn't make the process of predicting an app budget any easier.
And when you're looking at size, think about when having all the apps on your device at one time, you run the risk of running out of space. Keep in mind that 16 gigabit iPads are the standard model, which still remains popular in education today. Here at Pequea Valley, we do currently use the 16 gig model for our K-4 iPad initiative.
Fortunately, eSpark has solved these problems for us through automation. Device-based distribution allows us to purchase a small quantity of licenses that can be recycled and reused by other learners. eSpark can automate this process easily in the background to make sure that learners are receiving only the apps that they need when they need them. This is also a huge time saver for our tech team, since we don't really have the time to manually deploy, manage, and recycle apps for each learner.
And with the ability to have these apps arrive when needed on demand, it protects the device's space, and it allows for the learners to use the device to its fullest in order to create projects using the space-heavy apps like iMovie, GarageBand, etc.
So one great way to think about the difference between classic app distribution and eSpark would be a backpack versus a library model. And here's what I mean by that. If we know that a student over the course of a year is going to need 30 books, in the backpack model, you buy them and you carry them with you at all times. And we know that's bad for budgets and it's bad for backs. Where with the eSpark model, we can really think about that as an institutional library where you buy as many copies of an app or a book as you might need at any one point in time. And then you check resources in and out of the library as necessary. So this might be how you deal with other resources available in the classroom. And eSpark really takes that antiquated app distribution model where one app per student, and we can move it to a more dynamic, interactive model where students are really getting the content that they need at the right time.
This screenshot gives you an example of our VPP purchases history here at Pequea Valley while using eSpark. You can see how it's a combination of paid and free apps, along with how we are only purchasing the minimal number of licenses that are needed, rather than purchasing licenses for every learner in the classroom.
So far, we've heard that eSpark offers an engaging experience for students, and it simplifies the app procurement and distribution process for IT, but we all didn't get into education because we wanted to make our jobs easier. We got in an education because we want to provide that experience for students and help them achieve more. So Ashley's going to tell us how eSpark is actually making a difference for the students in her district.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about kind of the technical side of eSpark and Jamf, but I know that when you go back to your district or school team, you're probably going to be asked something like, you know what, it's great that these systems can benefit IT, but what about student achievement? It always comes back to student achievement. So I have some quick data points to show the connection to student achievement for you. So on this first graph, this first scatter plot connects the number of eSpark activities completed with math growth on the Let's Go Learn level set test that we use. An eSpark activity includes things like watching an instructional video, playing a game, working with an app, taking a quiz, etc. So this specific chart is just from our winter mid-year test. So the positive slope of the line you're seeing indicates that the more eSpark activities our learners complete, the more growth we see on their math levels. The metric 3 graph displays the correlation between the number of eSpark missions that are completed and growth in overall grade equivalency. So learners that are completing 0 to 3 missions grew a little over half of a grade level. Learners completing 4 through 7 missions grew almost a full grade level, and learners who completed 8 or more missions grew more than 1 full grade level. We're also seeing that eSpark has the highest impact on our below grade level learners. In the first graph on the left, you can see that our below grade level learners who didn't use eSpark often showed almost half of a grade level of math growth on the winter Let's Go Learn test, while our below grade level learners who used eSpark often grew about 3/4 of a grade level. We see the same trend with our on and above grade level learners. The more you use it, the more growth we see. Especially with our below grade level learners, eSpark really helps to close that achievement gap and focus on individual needs to help them grow. Metric 2 connects growth in goal and non-goal areas with grade level growth. So in non-goal content, our K-2 learners grew over half of a grade level using eSpark, while our K-2 learners grew 1 grade level in goal areas from fall to spring. So bringing it all together, this data really allows us to prove that eSpark and Jamf are not only what's best for IT and our instructional staff, but also what's best for our kids.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. So, as hopefully you heard today, Jamf's integration with eSpark solves a lot of problems. It solves the VPP problem. How do you procure the right apps? It solves the app distribution problem. How do you make sure that the right students are getting the right apps? And it helps solve some budget issues when it comes to iPad. How do we make sure we're making the best use of our app budget and our device storage? And what you heard today is how these two great products, both Jamf Pro and eSpark, work seamlessly together to provide that elevated learning experience for your students while simplifying your IT backend. We specifically looked at device and app management, as well as eSpark's ability to personalize apps based on the student's third-party assessment data. And we talked about the API that allows eSpark to dynamically assign and recycle apps within Jamf. If you liked what you heard today, I'd highly encourage you to engage eSpark or Jamf to continue this conversation. And you can do that a few ways. If you want to connect with eSpark, you can go to esparklearning.com/eSpark. And if you're a current Jamf customer and you search for eSpark Jamf, you will find their integration guide on both of our web pages. And if you're a fan of Twitter, you can engage with eSpark. They're at eSparkLearning. And the entire education team at Jamf is very familiar with our integration with eSpark. So if you have a Jamf AE that you work with already, ask them about it. Otherwise, if you go to jamf.it/eSpark, that will take you to our eSpark landing page that talks more about this integration, provides white papers and additional information that you might want to bring back to your district. And alternatively, you can connect with me on Twitter. I'm at Jamf_Sam. And I love talking about differentiated learning and ways to expand the use of Apple within your district. So let me know. Love to have a conversation with you there. The other great thing about eSpark is similar to Jamf, it is available for purchase through Apple. So if you have an Apple rep that you have a good relationship with, you can also ask them about eSpark, Jamf, and what the integration means for students. And there are a ton of other resources as well. Jamf.it/eSpark has a 5-minute video that's really a great summary of the things that we announced at JNUC, specifically as it relates to differentiated learning on the eSpark platform. So if you like today, that's a quick 5-minute recap. Now, Pequea Valley also had a full JNUC session at JNUC last year, and that shortened YouTube URL will take you directly to their 50-minute version where they really do dive more into that student achievement details, things that we talked about today, but today's webinar was for IT, so we wanted to focus on the benefits for IT. And lastly, that white paper I was mentioning before can also be found at jamf.it/eSpark. All that being said, thank you very much for joining us today. Hope that you found something useful that you can take from the session back to your district, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Jamf webinar. Thank you so much and have a great day.